In an era of NBA basketball where teams are becoming more and more restricted in how they operate and assemble their roster within the confines of the new CBA, an era that is often being referred to as the Apron era, where the luxury tax aprons have made it increasingly more difficult for teams to retain their superstars for the long haul, most notably that dreaded second apron, which imposes strict penalties and tax bills that almost make it impossible to operate over the second apron for more than a couple of seasons, to the point where championship level teams have found it more cost prohibitive in keeping their title team together and opting to break them apart and start over instead. Case in point, the Boston Celtics, who just won the title 2 seasons ago, were the title favorites going into this past season and have one of the most well-rounded rosters on both ends of the floor in the league, a team that you expect to be in contention for the foreseeable future with 2 stars in their prime, did everything they could to duck the second apron for this upcoming season, and doing so by moving on from Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday, will likely not have Al Horford come back as well. The Denver Nuggets, a team that won the championship the year before the Celtics did, have had to make tough decisions to relieve some of their payroll, including more recently moving on from Michael Porter Jr. and his contract. The Warriors, Bucks, teams that have just recently won the championship, have had to abandon some of their core players that were critical in their title run, again, for financial purposes, to avoid being over that second apron. While the Oklahoma City Thunder, fresh off their championship win and handing out all these fat extensions in the wake of their title to their core guys and gilgeous-alexander, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren, a lot of people have been quick to assume the Thunder are going to have to follow suit like all these other recent title teams, and that they're quickly approaching salary cap hell and will be forced to break up this team in just a couple of years' time. But that's actually not the case for the Thunder, because what OKC has done is not only plan meticulously for this, ensuring they remain in good financial shape while locking up their young core for the long term, but also maintaining the requisite draft capital to give them more flexibility in making upgrades to their roster over time, and just may have given them an opportunity to be the next dynasty of the league. How, you might ask? Well, let's talk about it. As always, be sure to subscribe if you like this type of content. We are nearing ever so close to 100,000 subscribers. Let's see if we can get there before the start of the NBA season. I would very much appreciate it. Now, when the Oklahoma City Thunder executed arguably the biggest fleecing of a trade in NBA history, where they sent one of the top players in the NBA at that time, in Paul George, to the LA Clippers in exchange for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, and 7 first-round picks, 2 of those picks being pick swaps, and the other 5 first-round picks, 4 of them being unprotected, and then of course one of those picks becoming Jalen Williams, who the Thunder used to select 12th overall in the 2022 draft. A player that has blossomed into an all-star. That trade would set the Thunder on this trajectory of where they are today, starting over, going through rebuild, accumulating a mountain of picks along the way, and would quickly go from being a lottery team to becoming title favorites in a matter of a couple years. The Thunder benefited from arguably the worst trade in the history of the game, but it wasn't just about that trade, because what the Thunder have done and being able to build from the ground up and arming themselves with the greatest currency in the league right now, that currency being draft picks. And what really put the Thunder over the edge in winning their first title since they were in Seattle was the key acquisitions they made over the offseason in landing guys like Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso as the perfect complementary pieces needed to round out their roster. But what has concerned some fans, and whether or not the Thunder will be able to maintain their core for the long haul after they extended SGA to a super max 4-year $285 million extension, which will give him the largest annual salary in the NBA, where he's going to be making over $70 million per year. But then they also extended both of their rookies from the 2022 draft class, locking them down and extending them early before they hit restricted free agency next summer, extending both of them to max deals. Chet Steele coming in at 5 years, $250 million. Jalen Williams, 5 years, $239 million, with the potential of it being as high as $287 million should he make an All-NBA team, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, etc. That's a lot of money tied up between 3 players, even if they are your best players. A lot of money between 3 players for the next 5 years, when those players are going to be making up 85% of your cap. A lot of money under the new CBA, where it's incredibly prohibitive to stay over the second apron for multiple seasons. Now, this upcoming season, it's not an issue. Both Chet and Jalen Williams will be playing on the final year of their rookie scale deals, but the following season, starting in the 26-27 season, when those new contracts kick in for both of those guys, While they still have Isaiah Hartenstein, Lou Dort, and Caruso all still making considerable money, they will be over the projected second apron for that season, and it's going to be by a lot, roughly $20 million over the second apron. And so the natural reaction to this is, well, they're going to have to get out of the second apron at some point because it's going to be so limiting for them to fill out the rest of the roster. And you don't want to lose your first round pick by remaining over the second apron for 3 out of the 5 years. They're going to have to do what Boston did. The big difference, though, between the Celtics and what they were forced to do versus what the Thunder have going for them, all of their core guys are in their 20s. Chet and Jalen in their early 20s, in fact, and are just entering their prime. The Celtics were an older team, even though their stars are in their prime, but an older team that, simply put, cannot justify having such a high payroll. And then the other thing the Thunder have the luxury of doing that the Celtics did not, they're able to cycle out their complementary role players like Caruso, like Isaiah Hartenstein, like Lou Dort even. They can cycle through these types of players over the years while their core 3 is still in their prime. And they're able to do this by trading for new ones with all of the draft picks they have at their disposal, sending out picks to teams who have players they need, players that maybe haven't worked out on their respective team, or said team is looking to go in a new direction and looking to sell off their assets for picks. The Thunder have the ability to do that, whereas some of these other teams over the apron do not. Most of these title contending teams with high payrolls have traded away most of their picks rather than accumulated them. And so for the Thunder, they can maintain their current core 3 players who will eat up a good portion of their overall cap, especially with SGA's latest extension and that kicking in. He'll be making 35% of the cap just by himself. But where they can get creative is by filtering through role players, cycling through the rest of the roster by leveraging their draft picks to acquire more talent for the future that are on more cost-controlled contracts and move off of guys that are starting to age out. Now, don't get me wrong, the Thunder will still have to ensure they bring in the right pieces that fit with their roster and hit on trades, and they've done that in the past. But as long as they're able to filter through role players over the next few years and maintain their 3 best players, their 3 guys they signed that they just locked up for the foreseeable future, then they've unlocked a recipe for success, a recipe for a dynasty that most thought wouldn't be possible under the new CBA. They've already got the best team in the NBA, the most complete team in the league on both ends of the floor, the youngest team to win a championship since the 70s, and a team armed with more draft capital than even some of the worst tanking teams. The CBA be damned, the league doing what they can to encourage parity be damned. The Thunder are set for years to come, and only injuries, fingers crossed, or an extreme drop-off in play from one of their big 3 is preventing them from winning multiple championships over the next 5 to 7 years. That's just my take on the matter. I'd love to hear what you guys think, though. Do you think the Thunder are well positioned to become the next dynasty in the NBA? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.